Welcome everybody back to Neutrality Studies. I'm Pascal Lota, and with me today is again Stanislav Krapivnik, the colleague in Moscow who always has fantastic insights because he also served in the US Marines, right?
No, Army.
The Army, sorry, the US Army. So,
Not a jarhead. I was a trackhead and a grunt, but not a jarhead.
well, you've been analyzing these international situations for decades now. Stas, after 1 week and 2 days of slaughter in Iran and this new insane war, what is your assessment now?
Well, we're about to enter a much worse phase because for two reasons. Obviously, now it's become an oil war, and we're watching it step by step evolve, and it gets worse for two reasons. One, the Americans have no plan. They never had a plan. Trump was convinced 4 days, and that's it. We're in day 9. And the oil markets have panicked. They're finally starting to really realize that this is long term. So oil hit 110, and it's not stopping. Obviously, it was going up very slowly at first. It was like the first day is 2.5% ice. You'd think it'd be the big spike, but everybody's believing America's little BS about it'll be 4 days, 4 days. Well, now I think they're starting to price in the no, it's not. So that's from one side, and the Americans have made it very clear the last couple days because I mean their story and position just changes by the hour. You have no idea why are they here? Well, they finally start coming out. They're here because of the oil. I know it's a shock. Everybody's shocked. They want oil. They want what's ours is ours. What's yours is also. It's the best commercial for any nation in the world to nuke up North Korea. It's not been touched. Plenty of resources will never be touched by America because they can reach out and touch America. That's it. That's the lesson for every single nation that has anything worth taking. Arm up. I'm not talking conventionally. Arm up with nukes. We're going to have an unfortunate thing by America's stupidity. Is every nation that can is going to nuke up. The other thing is you're dealing with Israelis who are well, first of all, we know that this all started because of the Israelis. As we've heard the big word salad from Marco Rubio and then Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and they went blah blah blah, lots of words, and you boil it all down to, well, we weren't planning on doing this, but the Israelis are going in, and we had no choice. Sure, you had a choice. You could have gone, Iran, we're not in this. Have fun with the Israelis. Don't touch us. We're not touching you. That would have worked real well. But then the donor class would be very, very upset with you, wouldn't it? And Marco Rubio's chances of being president would be zero.
That's the big difference to the 12-day war last year in June, right? That's when Israel attacked, and the United States said we're not part of this until the very end. I mean, we know that they were part of it, we know that they prepared, but this time it's a completely different game, right? They said we attacked first, both of us together, and Trump came out with this insane statement of what the war aims are, and he keeps repeating that at the moment. Iran must unconditionally surrender, or else we continue. So that's the language that they used with Japan at the end of the Second World War, before they dropped the nuclear bombs on them, and that was the war aim, and it was achieved by completely bombing and killing the civilian population. And it seems to me that this is very much what they're after at the moment here with what they're doing here. I mean, the Red Crescent just published actually a letter saying, like, look, in the first 1 week we've had 6,668 civilian structures that were bombed, 5,500 residential units, 1,000 commercial units, 14 medical centers, 65 schools, and so on and so forth. 7 Red Crescent relief workers have been killed in this thing, and the pictures that reach us from the bombing of the oil drilling or refining stations is apocalyptic. We can see the Iran in Tehran, the ditches burning. I mean, the ecological disaster that the US is now wreaking upon Tehran and actually the entire region, because this stuff is going to spread all over the place, is in any way, shape, or form. Just like horrendous, like apocalyptic is the word to use. So in a sense, the Iranians were not as lucky as the Ukrainians of dealing with a civilized army on the other end. But here we have people who wreak havoc on massive scale on their city centers. What can you make out of the way that the U.S. is implementing the war?
This isn't the U.S., this part. Let's be honest on this. U.S. wants resources. This isn't getting resources. U.S. wants the infrastructure intact. The problem here with the U.S., why Trump is saying unconditional surrender, he wants anything to end this war at this point because pardon my French, he's fucked. I don't have any other words. That's the best word. Sometimes you got to use words like that to describe just how Trump his presidency is over. Possibly a lot of other people's chances of ever becoming president are over.
He's ruining the chances for the others as well. Yeah, especially for Vance. Yeah. But let's go on that later. Who do you think? Is there Israelis who do this?
Well, the Iranians already said. I mean, he's using any. Okay, they've surrendered to the Arabs. So it's over. And the Iranians go, no, we're going to keep doing this until we feel we're done. But this is the Israelis. The Israelis struck this. This is because the Israelis are running a little bit of a different scheme here. They're doing the scheme of extermination of everybody that lives there, who isn't Israeli and isn't. I mean, they're flat out. Look, they're genociding Lebanon right now. They've hit. The Israelis start posting articles that look, the UAE has entered this war. They took out an Iranian desalination plant on the Kar Island, which is somehow that island. Well, it's mostly oil infrastructure for loading ships. It has like 30 villages. I'm assuming they're pretty tiny villages. They have that many villages on that island. It's probably just people who are working in that area, but they hit a desalination plant. And the UAE is like, no, we didn't do this. We're not in this. It's the Israelis that did it. And there's a reason the Israelis are doing it, because they want to exterminate the population. Think of what's going to happen right now. You want to talk about mass die-off of humanity. If this, and Iran has actually struck back, or maybe Iran has struck back. The Bahrainian, desalination plant has been hit. Just to understand, and the Iranians say, no, we're going to go after the Israeli desalination plants. That's their hidden.
Hey, very brief intermission because I was recently banned from YouTube. And although I'm back, this can happen anytime again. So please consider subscribing not only here, but to my mailing list on Substack. That's pascalotta.substack.com. The link's going to be in the description below. And now back to the video.
But here's the kicker of this. Iran, the whole region's been dry last decade, a decade and a half. It's climatical cycles. So Iran doesn't have enough water, but that's mostly for agriculture and industry. They have enough drinking water. Iran uses desalination plants for less than 5% of its population, like on that island. On the other hand, the Gulf state Arabs are 80 to 100% on desalination plants, because these are artificial countries, if you think about it. They're countries that have grown up and are there because of oil or gas. I mean, a lot of these countries, they can't grow their food if it's almost fully or absolutely fully imported. The water's desalination, which is there because they have the money to run it. They have the carbon hybrid. Yeah, they have the hydrocarbons. Thank you. They have the hydrocarbon resources to run these desalination plants and have the money from selling them to run these desalination plants. They have an artificially inflated population, whether it's their own people who have multiplied or the imported labor. But realistically speaking, if you look historically, these places were almost empty. I mean, I remember I went to Dubai. I was working at Halliburton. We had a headquarters there. And when I was flying to Dubai, before I flew there, I wanted to look at historic Dubai, because I like historic places, I like history. Couldn't find anything information, like what the hell? Then I landed, I started talking to locals, they're like, there is no historic Dubai. Dubai, before it started growing because of oil and gas, was one clay walled fort and a tiny village. That was historic Dubai. It doesn't exist. That got paved over and built up. So all of these cities are there only because they are mostly one-trick ponies, one-trick pony economies. They're oil and gas, hydrocarbons. That's it. Just like Azerbaijan's a one-trick economy. Well, it has some agriculture. At least they have agriculture. They can feed themselves. These countries, they can't feed themselves. Now we have the problem with Israel, which is, by the way, 75% on desalination. So if they're starting to play this game, because they hit the depots and refineries, Iran has hit the Haifa refinery. It's burning. They've hit an electric plant. It's also burning. Iran is officially officially from the Americans. We only saw like 5 missiles yesterday. Really? I mean, who are you going to trust? The pictures are coming out are mass damage, lots of mass damage. And Iran, while
Israel.
In Israel, and while Iran is not doing mass fires like it did in 2012, where you're having waves of 300 or 200 missiles coming in and drones, they're going for a long run. This is a war of attrition. They're not going. They understood that war was going to be short, so they gave it a good hit. Now we're going on a steady every single day, 50, 100. And they're saying, we've looked at the images, satellite images, we're going to up our volumes by about 50% for the missiles and about 100% for the drones. This is the long run. And they're going to wear away the Israelis.
The Israelis and the Americans can do the same, right? I mean, by now, like, Iran is basically on the air defenseless as far as I can see. And the United States still, I mean, even if something happened to the fleet, the US can at any time use its bombers the way that they did a year ago and just fly from continental United States and drop whatever they want over the cities of Iran. And apparently it's not only that they don't have any moral scruples in hitting civilian targets, it seems that they are aiming for civilian targets like little schoolgirls and so on in order to terrorize everybody. I mean, what do you see here as the way in which this is unfolding? I mean, it has become a very horrible, like war with intense war crimes basically from day one.
Well, by the way, Japan didn't surrender because of American air bombing. It didn't surrender because of the nuclear bombs, 2 atom bombs. It surrendered 2 weeks after the second atom bomb, and it did that because the Kuomintang army was exterminated by the Red Army. That was the last field army. That was a 1,000,000-man army. By the way, if you put all the islands that the U.S. took out, including the Philippines, that didn't come out to the same size army as the Kuomintang army. The Red Army just cut through them because these were Western Front veterans that came in. And the Kuril Islands were taken by storm. Outnumbered 3-1, the Russian Marines landed in the middle of the fog. And while the Japanese were still eating their rice, they had submachine guns, submachine guns pointed out. Surprise, we're here. We didn't fight like civilized Americans that bombed you for a week and let you know we're coming. They just showed up in the middle of the fog and took those islands. So that scared the crap out of the Japanese, knowing that the northern home islands were going to be next. And the Red Army was massing to take the northern home islands. That's why they surrendered in the end. That 1,000,000-man army was supposed to be ferried over to defend the home islands from the Americans. And Americans were, to say that they were in a tizzle about that, they were looking at 2 million. Their projections for the Americans was 2 million dead of American soldiers to take the home islands. So they were begging, pleading, doing everything they can to get Stalin into that fight as fast as possible because they couldn't do it. They'd have to.
Ones who think that the entrance of the Soviet Union into the war was way more had much more weight on the political decision to surrender. But like, what is the game for Iran now? I mean, do you think that there's people in Washington who think that they can do that again? Like they can pull off a Japan style unconditional surrender?
America does this every single time. It's never worked. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Americans burned to death 5 million Germans, civilians, during World War II. They burned to death about 100,000 French for whatever reason. I mean, they were taking out villages that didn't even have any German soldiers in. To a point where Churchill had to intervene because we're going to turn France into a perpetual enemy. to continue that. Luckily, de Gaulle just buried it all under, and anybody that had issues with that historically were shut the hell up by the French government because they didn't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. But it never works. Sure, you can do mass destruction, mass murder. They do that all the time, but no country's ever surrendered from that. You want to conquer a country, you normally have to put somebody on the ground with a flag that says, "I'm here. I'm here. I've taken your ground." And that means troops on the ground.
And a lot of them, otherwise it ends up like a Vietnam, where you at some point you just get tired of it and leave, and that's it. So is that the best that Iran can actually hope for, a Vietnam style kind of victory after 3.5 million dead?
It may be, but even Vietnam, I mean, America can't repeat Vietnam without a massive draft. Vietnam, during the Cold War, and the U.S. at its height had 550,000 troops in Vietnam. That's the entire U.S. Army and Marine Corps right now. You pull them from every single side, you pull all the reserves in, and you throw them all into one spot. That's 550,000. The U.S. is really a much smaller military than most people think. Modern U.S. But you know, they're talking about, there's like 4 locations where they could throw in the U.S. military. It looks like 82nd Airborne is going to go in. So probably 101st Airborne is going to be behind them.
Sorry, I didn't hear about that yet. The plan, according to your information, the plan is that they will put boots on the ground in Iran.
Yes, it looks like it. They've canceled move and they've canceled maneuvers that were planned. These maneuvers get planned a year and a half, 2 years out. You have scheduled maneuvers, war games that you put people in, and all of this. I mean, it starts planning out normally about a year out. Half a year out, you're definitely kind of consolidating the plans and so on. I used to do this. So when they cancel a big yearly war game, that means a lot. And when they start telling people, that's it, everybody's off leave, everybody back on post, that means a lot. Now, which way are they going to go? I don't know. In my last video, I mentioned 3 locations, but now there's a 4th location. It's Car Island, which is even more insane than the other locations. So they could go into Kurdistan. But the Kurds aren't exactly too apt to trust Americans. I wonder why. El Jelani massacred them after the Trump just recently, 3 months ago, said, have at them. Oh, wait, will we need them now? Amazing. The Kurds remember that. That's one. Plus, Turkey is not going to allow an independent Kurdistan on its border with its Kurds that it really does repress the hell out of on the other side of that border. There's no way it's going to allow that. Alternatively, they could go through Azerbaijan. That's probably the sanest place to go. Now, the logistics are insane. I mean, if you think about where the U.S. military would have to feed, considering it's right between Russia and Iran. Oh, and Russia will probably supply Iran and give out satellite data, and so will China. Oh, shock, I know. But Russia's been warned by the U.S. It will have consequences. Okay, 4 years of proxy, Russia will have consequences. Keep dreaming. At this point, that's how much anybody cares. So that's probably the sanest place to go in. And the thing is, though, you can't really rile up the Iranian Azerbaijanis because they're co-rulers of the country. Not only has one of the previous presidents been Azerbaijani, Khomeini was Azerbaijani, and so is his son, who's going to be the new supreme leader. You cannot get these people to go revolt against what? They're in power. Their ethnos is in power. It's pretty damn hard to get them up and revolting. Now, whether Azerbaijan will be left after the end of this war and whether its one-trick economy is going to be left intact, that's a big question. But it seems that would be the most logical. I mean, logical, probably the most sane. There's no logic here. The other location.
Do we have any actually on the ground indication that the Azerbaijanis are preparing to receive the Americans? Like that this is where the troop amassing will start?
Not yet. There is a Israeli base in Azerbaijan. There's an American presence there. Plus, Georgia, a month and a half, allowed American planes to go through its airspace, and they were landing C-130s in Georgia. right after that. So maybe that's where the drones came from, that mystery drones that they needed to start a war with. And there's from what I've been being told, there's Israeli agitators trying to get Georgia into a fighting mood. So I guess against Russia. The Iran is a little bit far away from them, but that's the sanest place.
Okay.
Because if you have to retreat out, you can retreat back out.
Right.
And
But you would need, in order for that to happen, you would need the okay from Erdogan, because Azerbaijan won't act without Erdogan's thumb up.
I mean, they'd have to pass through. They'd have to pass through Turkey, obviously. I mean, and once they get through Turkey, they'd go through Georgian airspace and into Azerbaijan. I mean, that I could see that Azerbaijan, Erdogan plays every side, and the most you can.
Right.
Now, I thought the most insane place was going to be the Straits of Hormuz, because you couldn't land the airborne by dropping them out of parachutes. It'd be a massacre. In fact, because when even if you're jumping at 900 meters, if it's a drone-rich, FPV drone-rich environment, you're going to lose a bunch of people just there coming down. Never mind, it's probably not the best locations. Consider there's mountains, the climatic. If it's mountains, more likely the air currents are going to make it very difficult. But you could drop them into the UAE, use the Marines or to grab a beachhead and try to take the entire beachhead to, quote, make it safe. Of course, it's not going to make it safe from any drones coming down. It's just going to be a repeat in large of Krynki. If you remember Krynki was a proof of concept where Zelensky dropped a company of Ukrainian Marines across the Dnieper River to take this small touristy village of Krynki, which if you look across from Kherson to the Russian side and go just a bit north, it's up there. Krynki was, because there is no Krynki anymore, Krynki was 3 parallel streets running down parallel to the Dnieper River, and behind it, there was one road coming in perpendicular, and it was swamp behind it. So the Russian forces couldn't get in, but the Ukrainian forces couldn't get out. So the Platform was useless. It was a bottleneck. And Russia said, okay, fine, you've taken Krynki. And they started artillerying Krynki nonstop, day and night. And the Ukrainians, the thing is, the Ukrainians took it as a proof of concept. And the Americans said, okay, now you've done it. Now expand, put more troops in there. And Zelensky had his back to a wall, and that couldn't back out. And in the end of about 4 months, they had two of their Marine battalions exterminated in Krynki because they just kept shipping people in and they kept getting killed. So about 2,000 guys died. And I mean, there is no Krynki. It's been leveled to basement and below by Russian artillery. Russia finally cleared it out when they stopped sending reinforcements. They just cleared out whatever was left. Those guys were abandoned, were there. So this would be pretty large if they go to that. Because again, now you have to supply them, even though it's not a very wide water lane, you'd have to supply them across water to their backs of water, to their fronts are mountains, and about 1 million angry Iranian soldiers. But that I thought was a.
I've read this morning that actually the Gerald Ford is on its way there. Is that your information as well?
Yeah, I don't know why. Honestly, I have no concept why they would do that. But now they've come out with even a worse plan that I couldn't even imagine, was to grab Carr Island, because that's, by the way, desalination plant has been bombed there, so you're not going to get any water. So to grab and occupy that, because that's where the oil terminals are. Look at the distance you would have to go across the entire Persian Gulf at its widest, basically, or just about its widest, to be able to supply these guys. They're not that far away from Iran's mainland, so they're going to be drone happy environment. It's suicide. I mean, these guys, you're going to have drones coming in, FPV drones coming in day and night, in a pretty much so open area. Plus whatever missiles, heavier drones, and everything else. It's suicide. But they'll drop people in there because you're dealing with idiots and you're dealing with yes men generals who are never going to say no.
that's why it's so hard for me to believe that they actually really contemplate putting U.S. boots on the ground. I mean, that they contemplate trying to have the Kurds go in from Iraq, or having the Azerbaijanis like send their armies, a couple of thousand men, just in order to draw in, Iranian forces that they can then bomb from the sky. I mean, I see why they would do that, but actually putting in U.S. troops, I mean, isn't that that's the surest way to lose the last part of support that you have inside the US? I mean, or why?
Okay, so Hegseth wants a crusade.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay,
the
and here
man,
we are at
the
the point.
man wants to be the man wants to be a holy crusader for
Right.
the heretic. I mean, he is part of Christian heresy. And that's what it is. This dispensationalism, this Christian Zionism came around in the 1830s by a guy, if I remember correctly, by the name of John Darby, who was a British preacher, evangelical. Eventually, he moved to the U.S. So that mentality. I mean, Hexeth actually said once when he was before he was confirmed that he wants his sons to fight for Israel. Yeah, and you want to be defense minister of whose country?
And and and
Um,
and and I did a whole video about that last week, about Hexet
you did.
having two of these tattoos, the Jerusalem cross and Deus Vult, like, really kind of worst of the worst kind of like Christian fundamentalist crusaders. And not only that, we also have people in the army who think like that. And you actually wrote me and told me that you've met people like this who are, within the ranks of the army, and they think in terms of holy war. Can you tell me a little bit about those peeps?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around a lot of these types of people. It's not all evangelicals are Christian Zionists, and for I've been talking to people, it seems amongst the youth they've been moving away from that. But Christian Zionist is an absolute heresy. In Christianity, the understanding from day one of the church, what they're now calling the heresy, the Christian Zionists are calling this a heresy. It just uh, good lord, I mean, I was up too late last night working. Substitution. That's a substitution heresy, which the heretics are calling the mainstream 2,000 years of Christian theology as a heresy. Okay. Substitute. What they're calling substitution is what the church has accepted from day one. Okay, so the old church is the Orthodox Church. All the Catholics consider it's the Catholic Church. But anyways, it was a unified church until it split in 1054 AD. And you can argue who split whom. But the point being is, up to then and now, the worldview is the Jews, the modern Jews, are those that followed Christ, be they Hebrew or Gentile. That the Jews of old that they refused Christ are no longer the chosen people. The chosen people are those that followed God. And when Christ said, I am the way, I am the temple, he is the temple. There's no third temple. He is the third temple, basically. As he said, the temple will be destroyed and I'll raise it back up in 3 days. That was the resurrection. He is the temple. He is the way. The Jerusalem that people they're talking about is the spiritual Jerusalem, God's Jerusalem, heaven, not a physical city. It's a holy land only because Christ was there and the predecessors, prophets were there. But that's it. That's it. Um, that's the concept in Christianity, mainline Christianity. These guys, they don't believe that. They believe they take the he who blesses Israel will be blessed by God, and they take it to an extreme. This is from the Old Testament. They have what was called the Schofield Bible, which I think I'm not. I need to look up the date it actually came out. I think it was in the 1880s. It came out somewhere around there. This is the first time that a Christian Bible, like a study type Bible, a Christian Bible, had notes in there on how you're supposed to interpret everything. The problem with when you have an organized church, you have an organized theology. It's not secret; it's there. The priests are there to guide the people and to explain that theology, and everybody's on the same sheet of paper. When you get to the evangelicals, like what we had in my university, we had what was called brickyard preacher. These are guys that basically read the Bible once or twice, probably didn't understand half of what they read because they probably never read anything else. And they go out there and they start preaching to you. And they're usually butt ass ignorant. I mean, these are just some of the most ignorant, moronic people you've ever seen in your life. I just, for a while, just for fun, I just twisted them around because you start asking questions and the obvious logical fallacies. But one of them is an example, just as an example. We had one brickyard preacher that come out there. NC State allowed it on the brickyard. They could say what they wanted to, kind of a free speech area. And there was a couple of guys walking by with long hair. It's like, you're going to hell. You got long hair. It's like a woman. You're going to hell. Like, wait a minute. How many icons of Christ have I seen with a crew cut? None. It's like, this is the level of pure ignorance and judgmentalism. In Orthodoxy, it's hate the sin but love the sinner. There is no love in this place. These is just strictly, we hate you. You're going to hell because you don't look like I look like, and so on. Or my interpretation of it.
And we know now that these people are even in the White House. What is her name?
Yes.
The spiritual faith advisor, like or something. I mean, this lady is clearly crazy. I did my show last week. I mean, clearly crazy, and says, like, hear it rain, I hear it rain. I want more death and destruction on the end of Israel. Right? That's the whole point. And then they had a prayer on Saturday or so in the Oval Office. Everybody like touching Donald Trump and Donald Trump in deep prayer.
He's the anointed.
So, I mean, are we still dealing with this kind of rationalist approach toward war being the continuation of diplomacy by other means? We are outside of that realm if those people are the ones calling the shots.
Look, these people, they want the second coming because they want to teleport to heaven without having to. They want to meet Jesus without having to die. That's their like aim. I mean, this is how they believe that in their rewritten assessment of theology, or assessment's a proper word, a rewritten concept of theology, Christ is going to come twice instead of the second coming being it for Christians, or the first coming as the Jews see it. It's but to them it's going to be a second and a third. The second being, as they said, out of one small text out of the Old Testament, when God comes, he will call his saints to him into the clouds. When God comes in the sky, he'll call his saints to him. I'm paraphrasing. The whole concept is they all get to teleport away, whether with clothes or without clothes. That's also a debate. But then they all get to teleport away, and then all you damned sinners to hell, including all the other Christians that never recognize as Christians necessarily, particularly Orthodox and the Catholics. We're all pagans to them. Don't ask them where the Bible came from and everything else. They have no real clue when you start getting into the details. And then between, some will say 7 years, some will, I've heard say 1,000 years later, Christ will come again to judge all the damned people on earth that are going to be eating each other and murdering each other off, because that's it. All goodness is gone when they teleport away. I mean, they would form support groups where they would go ask their damned neighbor, because he's not like me, so he's damned. They would ask their damned neighbor and give them a key to the house to, if they trust enough, to allow their pets out once they teleport away. I mean, want the pets to die in the house, so let them out, so they'll die. Yeah, kind of support groups like that. They believe this. As much as the Seventh-day Adventists keep predicting the end of the world, even though Christ said specifically that only the Father knows the hour and the day and the hour of the end of the world, that it'll come upon you like a thief in the night. So do what needs to be done and live your life. They keep constantly trying to predict it, but they say they believe the Bible, every word of it.
There was a Hollywood movie about this called, I think it was like Left Behind. I think it was
it wasn't Hollywood. It wasn't Hollywood. It was made by some evangelical group, and I watched like 5 minutes of it. I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, but they portray exactly that. So there's actually a group of millions of people in the United States who have this kind of vision of the world.
They write books about this. They write sci-fi novels about the damned that are left behind, and how they will suffer and barely survive in this post-apocalyptic or post-rapture world. Rapture as in we've not rupture, rapture. For those that beam up, so they don't have to die, they just beam up. But to get there, you need Armageddon. And if you look at that,
it's just hard for me to wrap my head around it, because like this entire narrative has actually not been part of the official script. I mean, we've seen a lot in the official script. We have seen you cannot have nukes in the script. We have seen you have to give up missiles. We have seen you cannot threaten Israel, or because you chant death to America. All of those things we've seen like up and down the media stream. What we haven't seen up and down is this kind of, we need to bring about Armageddon in order to go to heaven. That has been, although it is clearly there, it's clearly there. But how far is that evangelical ideology now actually influencing the Pentagon? I mean, isn't there going to be a moment when the people, the generals, just say like, stop it. No, we're not going to do that. That's insane.
Well, some of those generals are evangelicals, and apparently quite a few brigade commanders are evangelicals. Yeah, I had sergeants like that. When I had some sergeants like that, and they'd start this up. Because see, there's a war. It's rumors of war. It's the end of the time. It's like, as an Orthodox Christian, I tell them, keep it to yourself. Keep it to your off hours. If you guys want to get together and talk about it, I can't stop you. It's your freedom of speech. But keep it out right now, because you're just pissing other people off. The Catholics, the Lutherans, what have you, that serve, they get annoyed by this. These guys, they're like, they're fanatics. And fanatics tend to, get excited constantly at every drop of the dime on anything. And it was just, just keep that evangelical concepts, those endlessly end time concepts, to yourself and do your job. That was my position on it. But apparently that's now a promotable position. You want to be a brigade commander, be an end times evangelical. I guess under Pete Hexeth, that's what gets people going. Because apparently there's a lot of complaints from other Christians, by the way, not even Muslims or Jews in these units, which aren't that many people, either Islam or Judaism in the military. If we could be honest about it, it's mostly Christians. The vast majority are Christians or atheists, but they get pissed off because that's apparently what, when your brigade commander says, Trump's the anointed one, don't worry if we all get killed. We're going to get killed for Armageddon and for Israel. Wait a minute. What did I sign up to do? Who am I supposed to be defending? It just starts things moving in people's heads, especially when it comes to your brigade commander. It's telling you this.
But that's the entire fun about having an organized army, right? It is under central command. It is under hierarchical control, and whoever has the keys tells the army what to do, right? And it seems that the keys have been handed over to somebody very close to Iran, right? And these keys are now very, very skillfully being used in order to deploy the U.S. Army against the enemies of Israel, right? Which means that the entire decision making is actually not in the hands of the White House. So the actual person who needs to be convinced that this slaughter needs to be stopped is actually the Israelis.
Well, Donald Trump is not a religious man. Let's be honest about it. He never was. He's not. At least he's definitely not any kind of practicing Christian of any denomination.
But anyone who tells him you're the anointed one and you're the second coming of, or you're the man who brings about the second coming of Christ, you're a holy person, he will love these people if you tell him that. If you rub him, right?
Egotistical. He's egotistical as it gets. He's a narcissist. But if he practices any religion, it's the worship of Jupiter. But not in the sense that he has a statue of Jupiter. He's worshiping Jupiter, but Jupiter was the state. It's the state. It's Jupiter represented in the pagan mythos, the state, the power, the organization. He worships the state. So you may not worship Jupiter as a statue and an entity, but he worships the concept of it because he worships the state, the holy state, the state over everything. And I'm head of the state. I am the state. That exactly what he's telling you. When he says the only morality, I have high morality. The only break on what I do is my high morality and my mind. And he did that.
Me, it's my morality. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a second interview with a different journalist who asked him the same question. But internally, what are your breaks? He's like, my morality, my very high morality. I have a high morality. I'm a very moral person. And the guy is like, well, I thought you'd say the Constitution, the courts. Well, yeah, there's that too, but we never get to that because everything I do is the right thing to do for the country. It's like, wow, you're talking narcissism. Just all the brakes are off. All the brakes are off on the narcissism. Yeah. Plus, you get some form of dementia that's obviously already kicking in, and lots of energy. Biden was a psycho-dimensional patient, but at least he was the dimensional patient. Biden is evil. I'm not defending Biden either. Biden is a very evil person, but at least his version of dementia didn't have a hyperactivity added to it. And as bad as Blinken is and these other guys, at least they didn't want nuclear war. You could count on that. I don't know about these guys. And Trump's version of dementia seems to be hyperactive dementia. He won't just shut up and sit down.
If we're talking about people and a significant number of people in these different layers of the war-making apparatus who actually believe in the end days, I mean, it would not surprise me if they thought that the end days can be brought about with nuclear weapons, right? I mean, nuclear weapon use is the goal. Or have you any information of how these people think on that level?
Well, I don't think nuclear weapons is the goal. If you listen to their theology, they see the grand war of Gog and Magog are going to come down. I mean, you can watch these videos, these end time ministries. That's what they call themselves. They do trips to northern Israel, where they go to. Well, here is going to be where Armageddon is going to happen because it's a location. Armageddon's a location, and the Russian and Chinese armies. Just imagine the Russian Chinese armies are going to be coming down from here at this point, and we and the Israelis will come down here, and then God will smite all of them. And just watch this. I mean, I'm barely paraphrased, almost word for word what one of these ministers was doing, and he's everything behind the people in front of him. Yeah, they have whole tours that they do group tours to go see where Armageddon's going to be. And the moment Armageddon's going to be, they're going to Christ's second coming, God's second coming is going to happen. And well, since we don't know, but we can force it by getting Armageddon going. But to get Armageddon, we have to have the third temple. To get the third temple, we have to have an ethnically, religiously pure Israel. And before that, we just had to have an Israel to begin with. So you have this chain of support. But the Jews are all damned anyways because, they're not really worshiping, so they're all burn in hell, but we need them right now. And the Israeli Zionists, I sent you a video on Netanyahu and the rabbi, that Netanyahu's the anointed one, that this is a whole sect, a very large sect of Judaism, this fanatical Judaism, Messianic, that one of their rabbis, that one of their chief rabbis decided that Netanyahu was the anointed one and he was going to be the last great leader until the second coming, or the first coming of God. And he was going to hand the flag off to God and rule over all of humanity, or at least all of the Middle East, as the great empire. So he's now anointed. So you may be looking at another set of fanatics, just slightly in a different direction. And, I've talked to Israelis before. It's like, the Americans set you up for this because they want you to do this so they can, that's why they're feeding you. It's like, of course we do. But we need them so we can go this. It's you're looking at two groups of psychopaths that are coexisting for different reasons with different goals, but both of those goals kind of go down the same route. And yes, these types of people are in power, and you're looking at very, very dangerous people because they're not rational.
How did we miss this? I mean, how do people and analysts like I miss the fact that these people are that important in the decision-making process? B, what is your assessment of overall decision-making capacity? How many percentage would you think they count for? Because there's others. There's neoconservatives. There's maybe the Rubio types and so on that will do this for other reasons, right? I will not. But how much is it? Like 30% evangelicals have a say, or how big, how high would you put the structural importance of these people in the decision making process of the war implementers?
Okay, so the first question: how do we miss this? I've been talking about this for the last 3 years on Russian television, and people are looking, and still I sometimes get these looks, well, probably half the time, that I'm insane when I'm telling you that. At first, I was really getting looks of you're insane. This is insane. But you always had a couple people that went, oh,
I
oh,
mean, I have no
oh.
problem believing that there's people who think like this, but I would naturally think that they're like sidelined, somewhere on the margins of society. But what the mistake is to know they're in the core of goddamn society.
Well, for a very long time, they were on the sidelines of society. But like any worm, they keep worming their way in deeper and deeper into the heartwood, and now they're infested in the heartwood of the tree, and they in that society. So what do you do? Yeah, there's a problem. It's not a matter of how many or as a percentage they are, it's what positions they hold. Look, the Nazis in Germany, there's only 10% of the population that ever held Nazi party cards. 90% fought for 99% probably fought for Hitler. Or for Germany or Greater Germany, whatever the concept of that was. So it doesn't, revolutions, civil wars, all of this gets started by a very small minority in any given time. You rarely ever see the majority of the population rise up and go for no. It's always a very small minority that gets everything going. The majority of the people will just go along. They're like sheep. Like it or not, the majority of people are like sheep. It's much easier just to go along than to stand up and go, no, this isn't right, and be ostracized by society. That's just how it is. Humans individually may be very intelligent, they may be very passionate, they may be very compassionate, but humans in a group become a separate entity. And they get that compassion, intelligence, everything else gets subservient to the mob mentality. Unfortunately, but that's how we run. The point is, if they're in key positions like Ministry of War, a few other key positions, and they have enough backing because the lobby, the Israeli lobby, which is the donor class, the main donor class, backs them because it's useful for them, then you've got a lot of big problems, and we have a lot of big problems. I think Marco Rubio is a neocon. The neocons want power. I mean, they don't want the end of the world. They're not into any kind of crusades. They're Trotskyites. They want their version of how they define power, but they want power. They want to rule. It's kind of hard to rule if everything goes to hell in a handbasket and nuclear weapons are used and everything's destroyed. There's not much to rule from a bunker. So I think Marco Rubio is starting to panic because he's starting to realize just how deep this hole has gone. He's trying to talk the U.S. out of it, and Trump. I mean, they're appealing. They're strictly appealing to his narcissism. All these preachers standing there. I feel the power of the anointed Christ by Christ, Trump, and all he will lead us. That they're manipulating him very effectively. They know he's a narcissist. That's how you do it to get their ends, and I think they're very effective at it. It seems like it. He doesn't know what the hell is going on half the time. I mean, he just babbles out crazy things. I don't know how much briefing. I mean, look, Tulsi Gabbard was supposed to be the saving grace. He slapped her upside the head when she said Iran isn't producing nuclear weapons. She's become a wallflower. I guess she's figured out, she's not no longer with the Democrats, but she screws it up with the Republicans. She has no political career, so she basically, as far as I can tell, sold out. But there was a key interesting moment when it was all starting up. She gave an interview that said, we're reforming the format of how we're going to do these daily security briefs into a Fox News type format, just blips. Because what wasn't read, but what was mentioned by a lot of people is Trump doesn't like reading. Let's enter these numbers and letters on this page. Just give me the 5-minute breakdown. That's what he wants. He wants the 5-minute breakdown, the blurb for the pedestrians, not what the president is supposed to be reading in the details. That already tells you that man is not going to know the details of anything. He's not interested in the details of anything. I mean, okay, so with Reagan, they might have taken it in bed. It was Nixon in bed, or he was in bed to get around him. They'll go over, necessarily at a table, whatever. But he read everything, and so did Reagan. Reagan read everything. He listened to he had competent people around him. He listened to competent opinion. We're not dealing with that kind of human being right now.
So just these are the kind of people that are taking these decisions, and the evangelical the weight of the evangelical view of the world, or of the end days, is much stronger than we thought. Do you think Iran actually understands that this is the game, that this is what they're up against, like in terms of the decision making? Because to me it seems that what they're now aiming to do is attrition on the US side, and wear down their equipment and blind them on the with the radars and so on. But I mean, how would they convince the Americans militarily to stop this?
Well, one, they've already blinded the Americans and done an extremely good job. As a matter of fact, I think Raytheon was the developer of the big radar that was seeing into southern Russia. They're talking about $1 billion and 8 to 9 years to replace it. These systems were built up over time. Even the smaller radar in Qatar is looking at 12 to 24 months and $500 million. But that's if they can get enough of the high-end, refined, rare earth magnets. All the rare earths are magnetic. So if you refine them, they're automatically a magnet. That's the magnetic. They always hold a magnetic charge. So, but China's cut them off, so they have to set up their own. So you're not. It all depends how long and how expensive. It can get much more expensive. So basically, they are blind at this point. It's that's why when they said, "Oh, there's only 5 drones flying in a day," I don't believe that for a second. And the reaction time has gone down from 30-40 minutes, and where you can actually detect the launch, or sometimes the prep for the launch, down to 2-3 minutes, when it's already basically incoming, very close to hitting. So that reaction time drops very much. So they've already basically blinded the US. What Iran wants is boots on the ground. They very much want boots on the ground, because it's mission suicide. Iran is 70% mountains, and these aren't Appalachian mountains. These aren't Ural mountains. These are Himalaya mountains. Desert, mountains, strong points. You want to talk about it's a fortress. Iran historically has always been a fortress. There are very few people that managed to invade Iran effectively. The Soviet Union and the British did it in World War II, but at the beginning of World War II, they split Iran up to keep. Well, one, Iran was siding with Hitler, and 2, they wanted a supply route up to supply the Soviet Union that the Germans couldn't torpedo. So that was one of those moments. Iran was relatively weak and disorganized, or Persia, if you want to look at it. I mean, Persia was conquered mostly by whom? So the Arabs conquered Persia, and then the Persians twisted the Arabic version of Islam to fit their cultural needs. So twisted, I wouldn't probably the right word, adapted, modified it. And the Mongols conquered that area. But there's very few other instances of where that area was conquered, because it's a fortress. It's a mountainous fortress. You go in there, it's pretty damn hard. And modern Persia is a very, if not absolutely first world, it's pretty close to it. And scientifically, it's there, and it has beaten the West in certain fields. So they're not some primitive tribesmen running around. Though I think in the West, a lot of people, or at least in America, a lot of people think they are. Just a bunch of guys on camels running around in the desert, because they can't find Iran on a map. I mean, let's be realistic. I'd be surprised. You'd probably be surprised at the percentage of Americans probably can't find America on a map. It's a sad fact of being, but it is. Iran wants, and they flat out said this. We're waiting for you to come get us. Come get us,
That's
please.
true. That's true. Abbas Arakchi actually said, we're waiting.
So this would be, I mean, when you're being told, and they're not being told like, oh, don't throw us in the briar bush. Don't throw me in the briar bush. The rabbit to the wolf. No, they're actually going, yeah, this is just your only warning to our sanity. We're waiting for you. Just like the Yugoslav army was waiting. Yugoslavia surrendered not because of the air bombing, because Yeltsin betrayed Yugoslavia and cut aid and support for Yugoslavia. That was the final blow. Okay, the Russian ships and Chinese ships are bringing in supplies to Yugoslavia as neutral ships. And as we remember, General Clark said, "Oh, we're going to bomb them too." So and before he got pulled off the stage off of the NATO reunion tour.
So from what you're seeing, you think that the Iranians are going to say like, "There, come on, do it! Like, send your troops, and then we'll show you." Instead of just like a unending aerial campaign. So you think the aerial?
No, there'll be one ending aerial campaign too, from both sides. Well, the thing is, the aerial campaign on the American side is going to end down to cluster munitions and glide bombs. It already has. Look, the estimate came out that in the first 36 hours of this war, the U.S. used up 3,000 missiles. That's both defensive and offensive missiles. 3,000. That runs out in about a week. A maximum, if they keep you working at that rate, you maybe have a few more days to a week of Patriot missiles and SA-4s, and your Tomahawks are starting to run out. U.S. just disarmed itself. It's killed a lot of civilians. That always does that. The U.S. always kills civilians, no matter how much they always want to deny that. We don't do that. Yeah, you do every single freaking time. I mean, you have to have a 50-minute memory or 50-second memory not to know that they do this every single time. Every single freaking conflict, they start targeting. I mean, I was serving, we were targeting, when I was a cadet, just to understand this too, when I was a cadet, so we did infantry tactics every week for about once a week for about 3 hours. We did infantry tactics every single week and several years worth. So I consider myself very competent at commanding on infantry. We had a special forces sergeant that was our instructor, and you know what he taught us? Double tap everyone.
No, really.
If you don't need yes. If you don't need a ton, while the battle's going on, you can kill the enemy no matter what. And if he's, of course, if he surrenders, you're not allowed to shoot him by Geneva Convention, which is the law of the land of America, because it's a treaty that was ratified by Congress. You're not allowed to shoot prisoners of war, but yeah, we were taught, unless you need a tongue. Well, tongue is the Russian term, but you need somebody to speak, somebody to interrogate. You double tap everyone. And one of my professors,
we know now that's what they did with the school in on the first day, right? 160 dead children, and we know they send in the second missile exactly the same place 40 minutes later in order to kill the rescue workers. Yeah, just what Israel does with Gaza. Yeah.
The same thing that Ukraine does. I mean, they're taught from it's all coming from the same fountain, that are poisonous waters. The U.S. The U.S. is using terrorist tactics. You're right. They're using bait, and the bait is to kill off the emergency services and to kill additional people. But and it's inhumane. It's a war crime. But when does the U.S. care about war?
That's how they fight it. I mean, Pete Hegseth even told us he's proud of that, right? This is not a fair fight. We punch them while they're down. I mean, he uses all of these metaphors in order to say like, no, we're gonna break all and any kinds of ways of fighting clean, right? That's not what they want to do. They told us they're not targeting only military installations. They show us that they're not targeting only those. They show us that they're targeting the entire population. But then the idea here is to like terrorize the entire state into submission, right? And on the other hand, Iran is then trying to resist by saying like, okay, fine, then come and get us all.
Well, Iran's doing a lot more than just that. It is attacking back into the EU and degrading the U.S. capabilities quite a bit. Like I said, the Gerald Ford, if anything, was probably much more useful sitting between Crete and Cyprus and Israel, because it could at least provide additional air defense systems by shooting air-to-air missiles. You put the aircraft up in the air, and they patrol around. They shoot air-to-air missiles against cruise missiles. That's a very competent defensive form. Plus, you have your own radar systems. Moving it into the Gulf, where's the Lincoln? Oh yeah, it's about 2,000 kilometers away. Why? Because to bring it any closer to make it it's combat ineffective. The Lincoln is absolutely combat ineffective. It's too far out to be combat effective. To bring it in to be combat effective with planes that have a range of about 700 kilometers, you have to be refueled and refueled again and refueled coming back. Otherwise, they go bingo and they crash when they run out of fuel. Yeah, it's got a minimum of 2 refuelings. And long sorties, that mean long distance flights. That means the pilots are tired, the equipment is worn, so you're down to maybe 1-2 sorties a day. And you're a big target because of missiles, because of cruise missiles, because of hypersonic missiles. Never mind, somewhere out there, there's still about 18 submarines floating around, 18, 19 Iranian submarines floating around.
Oh, really?
So, oh yeah, they had about 20 diesel submarines. The Americans are claiming they sunk one of them. So I don't know. Maybe, well, we'll say they did sink it. There'd still be about 18 submarines floating around looking for targets. I mean, the Indian Ocean is a big place. Subs aren't getting constant updates from satellites, obviously, for obvious reasons. And diesel subs are relatively loud compared to a nuclear sub, so they can be detected more easily. But that's the point, though. If you bring in the Gerald Ford and its contingent, another 14 ships, and they're talking about a third Papa Bush coming in, and its contingent. So you'll have 3 aircraft carriers. You have an extremely target-rich environment, and if they come in there to be combat effective, you have a very target-rich environment that the Iranians are going to, of course, react to, plus Iranian submarines. So why would you do that? I have no idea. I mean, this is ridiculous. If anything, you're running out of air defense over Israel and U.S. facilities there, you'd think you'd keep them in the Eastern Mediterranean to keep providing air cover and air defense. But I'm just I was just a junior officer compared to these generals who are the geniuses of war and humanity, and they make these decisions. And no, you go, but okay.
Just, I mean, to wrap up, is there something that you didn't mention yet that you think is important after, like, to understand the war after 1 week, or did we cover most of the important parts?
I had this girl in one of my classes in high school. She was like a little sister to me. It was debate class. She was younger than me. And we didn't talk for about 20 years after high school. And she found me on Facebook, and we've been talking. And she's evangelical. And she writes to me at one point, when this was about a year and a half ago, and tensions were really high, and everybody's talking possible nuclear war, and Biden was, Mr. Comatose, and Blinken was, looks like everything's going straight toward nuclear war. And she writes to me, it's like, I'm really happy that we're going to see each other soon. Like, are you and your husband planning on coming to Russia to visit? No, in heaven. It's going to be over soon. That's the mentality we're dealing with. Let that sink in. And let people think about that. That's the mentality we're dealing with.
That doesn't make it any better. Stas, thank you very much for ruining the beginning of my week. To everybody else, but I'm very glad for frank talk. People should find you at Slavic Man, Slavic with a K.
Mr. Slavic Man, Mr. Slavic Man. There's also a Slavic Man out there, but not a Mr. Slavic Man. And Stanis Krapivnik on X, or I couldn't get the whole name. It was too long.
Google him, find his YouTube channel. He provides very, very valuable insights and updates. Stas Krapivnik, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.